Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October meeting of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. I'd like to welcome you all. Tonight we have two guest speakers, hopefully from the City of Albany. We have Sam Wells, who's the City of Albany's Neighborhood Stabilization Coordinator. And Sam will be updating us on Cities Rise and Zombies 2.0 grant work. He'll be sharing results from a Harvard University survey of small landlords, discussing an RFP for drone services, an RFQ for emergency rental repairs, and describe new initiatives in rental assistance, estate planning, and services, and an upcoming Mow-to-Own program. That sounds interesting. We also hope to have Frank Zeoli, who's from the City of Albany DGS, and he'll be talking about the city's new Adopt a Tree program. And our board and others who are joining us in the Zoom meeting will have chances to ask questions. Then we'll go through our committee, officer, and other reports. As we do usually, you may have seen them on the agenda. And so we'll get to those when we get to them. So I'm going to start right out with Sam Wells. He's been at many of our meetings. He's basically often think of him as the vacant properties specialist, but he does many other things. And so Sam, to you.
Thanks, John, and thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen now, and I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint here for you all. Awesome. Everybody can see it? Awesome. So again, thank you all for having me here tonight. Wanted to give you some updates after John had reached out. Let's see here. There we go. So I wanted to cover, again, give you updates on the Cities Rise and Zombies 2.0 program and some of the RFPs and RFQs that you've seen come out, that you may have seen on the city website come out of these two projects. Also related to this project is a Harvard landlord study, or a survey of small landlords that we partnered with Harvard University on in June 2020 that is driving some of the changes that we made to our Cities Rise and Zombies project. Including an emergency rental repair program, which an RFQ for that is due back tomorrow, and potential changes to the city housing code in the future. But first, just a little bit of background, refresh everybody's memory. Zombies 2.0 is a grant-funded program out of the New York State Attorney General's office to help cities address housing vacancy and code enforcement of the 2016 zombie law. There's a big pot for 50 municipalities across New York State. We won some funding from that. And added this, some updates on this program. The drone program, there's an RFP out for drone services that is due back to us by the end of this month. We've already heard from several contractors, and what this RFP is asking pretty much is help with purchasing a drone, training 10 code enforcement employees on it, and helping us ensure that we pass the FAA licensing exam and get trained on it. And then from there on out, we'll be doing rooftop inspections of pretty much every building across the city, as a way to keep a better eye on vacant properties and identify deteriorating roofs across the city. We also found a partner for our foreclosure prevention marketing, an affordable housing partnership. They're the local HOP provider, which is also a program run out of the Attorney General's office. And that's called, the HOP stands for the Home Ownership Protection Program, helps homeowners in staving off mortgage foreclosure and ensuring that they can keep their homes at the end of the day. Cities Rise, for those who don't remember, is also funded by the New York State Attorney General's office. Again, also helping cities tackle housing and code enforcement challenges. Bigger individual awards for cities in New York State, but much smaller pot overall. Only 10 cities won money for this. And this program, we've really been in this project since I began in the Building and Codes Department. Actually, just before I began, it started in April 2017. I began in May. We originally started out with 40 cities. We made the cut down to 10. And as you may recall, we won the large $1 million grant from the Attorney General's office. And you can see our full Cities Rise program on the left and all of the municipalities that won funding for this on the right. As you can see, we beat out pretty much every city with the exception of Elmira, who also won the full $1 million that you could win in this program. So what we won, you can see there listed in white, was the original grants program scope. The updates are in yellow. We had to make some changes due to the pandemic and COVID-19. You can see that in red. We reduced the proactive demolitions from 7 down to 4. And with that funding, created an emergency repair program, which we'll talk about a little bit later, as well as an emergency rental assistance program to supplement the rental assistance that we were able to send out there as part of the CARES Act that Congress passed back in May. And why? Well, before we get into why we made those changes, some updates on the programs that were there before. We've got a partner for our Mow-to-Own program. Working out some details there still, but we intend on launching that probably in the next couple months. Again, that program will be focused in Arbor Hill, South End, West Hill in particular, with lots that we want to make available to local community members after they show a year of stewardship, and that they can, they perform good maintenance and take care of the lots. It'll be theirs for the cost of $1. We'll be covering closing costs and any additional costs that arise from the purchase of that lot upon purchase of it. We'll be starting another push to get vacant buildings registered again shortly. We usually average around 70 to 80 citations for vacant buildings every month or so, but we'll be making a much larger push very shortly. You can see some of the other updates down below. We have contracts underway for the estate planning program, which we're very excited for. Our focus will initially be on Arbor Hill, West Hill, and the South End as part of the city's equity agenda. We'll be reaching out to seniors in those neighborhoods first, make sure that they have plans for what happens with their property that they own, before they pass. We run into far too many vacant buildings, where the owner passed without a plan and there's no willing or apparent heir for the property, and it becomes vacant solely because nobody owns it. And we want to prevent those situations from happening, and also ensure that generational wealth gets passed on. We have some upcoming amendments to residential occupancy permits that we'll be introducing to the council soon. We'll talk a little bit about some related housing code amendments further on. But let's dive into the changes that we made due to the pandemic. So when we started, this program, Harvard University is the research partner in this. They are going to be doing research on all 10 municipalities' various programs to help evaluate their effectiveness and create learning opportunities for all of us. We were challenged to be innovative and different and try something new. And part of the learning process of that was that Harvard was going to look over our shoulders, check our work as we do it, and give us some feedback and research on those. They wanted to do something in the realm of the rental housing market before pandemic, and then once the pandemic happened, they wanted to do they had even stronger of an interest in doing that. And I'm glad they did, because the results are quite startling. So a quick overview of the survey. We surveyed, Rochester was the other cities-rise city to join in on this. We surveyed landlords in Rochester and Albany, New York, who owned 3 or fewer properties. And obviously, we only could do the ones who, had registered contact information with those cities. We also, the questions we asked them were generally, what is the impact of COVID-19 on rent arrears, and how are you responding to those, to any issues, to those impacts? Our response rates were pretty similar across cities. We, reached out to 1,800 small landlords. We got about 243 responses for a 13% response rate. Rochester was pretty similar. And a couple caveats before I show you the results. They aren't necessarily reflective of the full landlord population, or necessarily reflective of real life or what what has happened. It's just a sample, as all polls and surveys often are. So the top line results here are that 40% of rental properties in the city of Albany for these small landlords had at least one unit that owed rent in June 2020. When you scale up that owed rent to be representative of the larger city, using American Community Survey census data from 2018 of your average median rent. It's about $820, which is low. The estimates of the magnitude of the owed rent for the city of Albany alone in June 2020 ranges from $2.5 to $4.5 million. That's $2.5 to $4.5 million of owed rent by renters in just the city of Albany for just the month of June 2020. That's a lot. The rent arrears, the owed rent for that month was present across a variety of neighborhoods and property types. You could see that, didn't matter whether it's above median income neighborhoods or below median income neighborhoods, or whether the property was owner occupied or not. There was owed rent pretty much everywhere regardless. The economic impacts of the pandemic are pretty widespread across neighborhoods and property types. And then a fifth of those landlords expressed a preference for evicting tenants due to financial strain from COVID-19. Again, this is just as of June 2020. Things obviously have changed since then. But at the time, landlords, for the most part, while a fifth were expressing a preference for eviction, the majority of the rest of the landlords were trying to work things out with their tenants, right? They were offering rent reductions or extensions, waivers, trying to set up payment plans. For the most part, at that time, I think most landlords were understanding of the underlying economic issues and the job losses, and were trying to work things out. The results in Rochester are pretty similar. If you search for their Landlord Summit on YouTube, you can see Elijah De La Campo, the main researcher at Harvard, give the full in-depth results for the city of Rochester on that YouTube video. But what we were originally worried about, in June 2020 was evictions, right? That was a lot of owed rent, $2.5 to $4.5 million in owed rent potentially in the city of Albany for just the month of June 2020. As time goes on, as time has gone on, obviously the underlying economics haven't really changed for the better. And so now we're starting to worry about mortgage foreclosures, landlords who decide to defer their property maintenance, and further down the line, landlords who may decide to skip, property tax payments. And so we, to really fully measure that, we are doing another round of surveys for those same group of landlords, and that started actually today. The Harvard researchers should have sent out an initial email to that same group of landlords today. And because of all four of those things, really, we made the resources we had available to really try to meet those needs. We've got $330,000 in rental assistance between Cities Rise funding and the CARES Act. We've got about $50,000 in mortgage assistance via the CARES Act. Our annual CDBG grant programs for home improvement repairs are available through the Albany Community Development Agency. Landlords there can access the lead abatement and TARP grants in particular, roughly up to $20,000 per unit and $6,000 per bedroom respectively. But federal assistance is desperately needed. You can look at those numbers and see the obvious mismatch between the owed rent in June alone and what we have available. It's not enough. We're doing what we can, but federal assistance is desperately needed. We also were able to squirrel away and through the Cities Rise program, thanks to the reductions and the proactive demolitions, $24,000 in seed funding for a revolving emergency rental repairs program. Now what that is, and actually you should have seen an RFQ out on the city website requesting qualifications from contractors to help us provide these services. And what this program is basically us using our emergency powers to correct unaddressed violations that result in an unsafe, unfit for human habitation order. These orders, when they apply, typically they aren't legally evictions or displacements, but in practicality, they often result in tenants getting displaced. Examples of violations that result in an unsafe, unfit order are lack of heat, lack of electricity, compromised electrical systems, lack of water or plumbing issues, leaking roof systems, typically the main violations that can result in unsafe, unfit for human habitation order. And so the goal here is to prevent unnecessary displacement of tenants during a pandemic, and to also take the opportunity to prevent deterioration of existing livable housing stock. The RFQ for contractors is due tomorrow afternoon, actually. We've been trying to reach out to contractors and hit up neighborhood association meetings and other venues to get the word out. We're really excited for this. But basically, you know, the way this would work is when we issue an unsafe, unfit order, we would obviously give the landlord an opportunity to make those fixes. On occasion, we run into landlords who refuse to make the repairs, and that is what often results in the tenants getting displaced. We've helped the tenants in the past find new places to stay, but the last thing we think should be happening right now is tenants getting displaced during a pandemic. And so if landlords refuse to make the repairs, which most do often make the repairs, but if landlords refuse to make those repairs, we're going to make those repairs for the landlords and bill them for that service. Obviously, we aren't, you know, part of the stick here is that the landlords can probably do this cheaper on their own, so they're going to end up with a larger bill than they otherwise would if they just went and made the repairs on their own. And that got us thinking as well about additional amendments to the housing code. And so some amendments to the city code that we're going to be looking to introduce to the city council is to create additional administrative fee for owners receiving an unsafe, unfit order to cover our response expenses, additional fines for uncooperative owners to pay relocation assistance to displaced tenants, or conversely to give us the ability to levy rent to pay for emergency repairs. You know, if the landlord would refuse to reimburse the city for the repairs that we would have to make on their property, you know, a proposed amendment that we're thinking about sending to the city council would give us the ability to have the tenants pay rent to the city instead of the landlord until the cost of those repairs is recouped. And then finally, we're going to be asking for the ability for buildings and codes to revoke residential occupancy permits where necessary and appropriate. So I know that's a lot that I went through relatively quickly, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Does anybody have, my contact information is on the screen. Does anybody have any questions? And I can stop the screen share too, that'll probably help.
I'm not seeing any hands up yet, but why don't at least folks just ask questions when we're ready, but I'll start out, Sam. So I found the survey extremely interesting, you know, a very large amount of rent in arrears. Do you have like a baseline normal to compare that to, as one would suspect that in 2020, with the pandemic and related economic dislocation, that number is higher than usual? So that's one question. And the other is a more general question. Here in Pine Hills, as in many neighborhoods, we're concerned with many things having to do with rental property. Of course, you know, unsafe and unlivable conditions are among them, but there are also less dramatic but very troubling continual problems with, for example, trash, litter, noisy parties, those types of things, quality of life issues that affect us. So I was wondering if from this survey and other work, we'll get more information or potential approaches on that, or is it really focused on sort of the more serious, is this still functioning as a rental housing unit? So those are the two questions.
Yeah, no, thank you. The second question, I wouldn't expect any changes in approaches to more quality of life and nuisance style issues from the survey, or especially, you know, this secondary one. We're focused more on really the healthiness of the rental housing market and issues on eviction. We'll get into it a little bit with landlords. Hopefully, most of them aren't going to be, you know, we're hoping that there's a silver lining that continues through this next round of surveys, that landlords aren't going to be telling us, yeah, I'm looking to defer property maintenance, you know, right? Hopefully they're getting enough rents, they're getting enough income to be able to continue upkeeping their property. But we'll be we'll see what the results are after the second wave. We don't, your first question is a good one. We had that discussion ourselves. We don't have a good baseline for what rental arrears normally are, right? That number isn't zero. There every month are renters who aren't able to pay rent that month, and we don't know what that number is. It's a bit of a blind spot for us in the survey, but we do, based on what we're hearing nationally and from our partners in Rochester and at Harvard University, we know that this is quite the increase. Owed rents in the city should not be anywhere near 2.5 to 4.5 million pre-pandemic or without a pandemic, frankly, and that's where our big concern is right now. That will eventually, the second and third order effects of that can be pretty devastating and can set us back when it comes to vacant buildings further down the line, right? If landlords aren't able to collect rent, it's going to hit their bottom line in some way too. And so not only will we be dealing with evictions, but we may also be dealing with more zombie properties and mortgage foreclosures. We may also be dealing with properties that landlords just throw their hands up and walk away and ignore code violations, right? There's other issues there that we're really worried about. I know, for even further down the line, we're worried about our landlords going to stop paying property taxes, right? And that's going to affect, the cities and the county's bottom line potentially. And so those are the questions we're focused on with these surveys at the moment.
Virginia, you have a question.
Hi, Sam. I'd like to know, I think you've been working, or the city has had a vacant buildings program for a few years now. How is that going in terms of trying to locate people who maybe own property but aren't taking care of it or left it or whatever it is have you been up until this COVID thing, of course it's a problem, but have you been able to reduce the number of vacant properties by a more assertive set of actions to, try to get people to either fix them up and sell them or to do something else so they're just not sitting there and getting worse and worse?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our numbers are holding steady, unfortunately. We're getting better at finding owners, but we're finding, some of the part of the issue is in the stick at the end of the process. Something when we did community feedback for the Cities Rise program, we heard this repeatedly from tenants too in their dealings with their landlords. People would make a complaint, right? They'd see code enforcement arrive. We'd write up the complaint. They would see the citation, it would get sent out. And then after 30 days, when the repairs weren't made, it would get sent to court and it would sort of disappear once it hit court, right? And when we look at the court process, we'll prosecute it in court. Generally, majority of the time, we're winning in court. And then it falls on us to collect the judgment that the court gives us. And that's where we've struggled a little bit. That's why we hired the extra attorney for corporation counsel. They had put out an RFP a while back for a debt collection service to collect on those judgments, and they didn't get any qualified respondents. So that's something that they have to do in-house, and it's very time and manpower consuming. It's not easy chasing people down and saying, look, the court says you owe us $10,000 because you didn't make these repairs to your property. That's quite the time expensive task to be doing. So that's why we got the extra code enforcement attorney. And we're also going to be we'll be working with the folks over in Corporation Council to try to find additional ways besides, housing judgment collections to, try to get some of these folks to pay more attention to their properties. So we're still thinking on that. We're still trying to find different ways here, but it's still an issue. So good question.
Thanks, Sam. Any other questions? Just go. I can't see you all to see if you have a hand
I see
up.
Marilyn's waving her hand.
Oh.
Yes, Sam, I just wondered who decided on the criteria for the landlords that you would survey? Was it you or the group that you worked with, or a combination? How'd that come about?
Yeah, so the researchers at Harvard approached us with those parameters first. You know, they wanted to look at small landlords, and that was a group of landlords that we don't typically hear from as much, right? The larger landlords, landlord associations, generally, they know how to make themselves heard, and they've been reaching out to us and researchers across the country throughout the pandemic. You know, there's, I think, a couple articles in the Times Union back in May and June about this exact same question for them. But what we were really interested in is how are the mom and pop landlords doing, right? The folks who provide an extra rental unit here and there in the city. And so we were looking at that in particular. That was an interest of both us and the researchers. You know, and then we obviously started with the large universe of what's out there and worked down from who we could contact and find. And we started, it was about 1,800 landlords that we knew, you know, we had contact information for and that we knew owned 3 units or less. We started with them. Out of those that all got invites, about 240 of those responded. We did offer, Harvard did have some incentives to offer, but if you're familiar with the institute, with IRB boards and the rules governing research, they were limited in what they could offer, and we weren't really allowed to assist with that, and still aren't. So there's going to be, you know, we unfortunately weren't able to offer as much incentive as we'd like to get information from these landlords, which increases the margin of error on these survey results. So again, you know, you have to look at them a little critically because they may not be fully representative of what's actually happening, but it's a good snapshot and gives you a good sense that there's a lot of pain out there amongst renters and amongst landlords right now.
Could I ask?
Yeah, go ahead, Marilyn. Oh, Marilyn, I think you're muted for your follow-up question.
Okay. Is there demographic information? I'm curious as to other areas of the city, I would suppose by neighborhood association, say, that where there are more rental property than other areas. Is that information? Does that exist anywhere?
Yeah, we have that information. You know, some neighborhoods do have higher rates of rental properties than others. But you know, what we were asking about in the survey was, you know, owed rent, and that was present across every neighborhood. That didn't seem to be a difference in neighborhood or property type or ownership type, really, when it came to who owed rent. A significant chunk of renters in every neighborhood lost income during the pandemic, and they all cross neighborhoods, across property types. You know, a lot of small landlords are taking hits right now, and you know, their renters are facing eviction in many cases.
Thanks.
One interesting thing we did find, just to add on to that, was that landlords who, you know, had previously done an eviction seemed to be significantly more comfortable with relying on it as a way of dealing with owed rent now, which was an interesting little insight that I think the Harvard researchers will probably return to at some point in the future. But for now, obviously, there's some more pressing issues that we need more information on.
Thanks.
Carolyn, looks like you have a question.
Yes, thank you. And thanks, Sam. This was really informative. The drone program for the roofs, are you going to be informing you said you're going to examine every roof in the city. Are you going to be informing the property owners about the state of the roof either way, or just those who are having roof issues that you're concerned about, or just rental property or commercial property owners?
Just those, yeah, good question. Just those that have issues that are, you know, worthy of a citation. You know, I'm sure we'll be happy to share photos with folks if that's, you know, if they're looking for one. You know, we can certainly provide that as a little bit of a service. But it's the same, you know, legally speaking, it's the same as taking a picture of somebody's property from the street too. So there's, as long as we're not looking in people's windows or flying through and, you know, below the roof line, we're pretty good there. So yeah, we'll be just reaching out to folks whose rooftops have, you know, significant issues that warrant a code violation.
And what is your timeline for that? When might people expect to see or hear something if there is a problem, or if there's not? Is there like a 1 year or 2 year you think that will take to get started, or you know?
Yeah, the RFP is due back at the end of this month. We'll probably be looking at start date, it definitely in 2021. I can't give you a firm, you know, month, but I would expect it to be in the first quarter of 2021. And it'll take time. There's 30,000 properties across the city, so it'll take time. You know, ideally, we'd like to inspect every rooftop, but we're going to be prioritizing, obviously, vacant buildings first, as well as any structures that, you know, tenants or residents are reporting, you know, leaking water coming through the ceiling, stuff like that. So it'll take some time to get through every property, but that's our goal, is to you know, try to prioritize the ones that clearly are crying out for a bit more code enforcement attention.
Oh, thank you.
Not seeing any other questions. No. Going once, going twice. All right, well, thank you. Thank you so very much, Sam. Interesting and informative as usual. Now we're going to go to Frank Zeoli from Albany DGS, who's going to talk about the new Adopt a Tree program. Frank, if you could unmute and give us a short description of the program, and I've no doubt there will be questions.
I unmuted and then you muted me. There we go. So let's talk about the urban forest. The urban forest is in trouble. That's the message that we're trying to send to the city residents of the city. So over the past years, we have faced some challenges. You know, we've got one of the biggest being the emerald ash borer of all the ash trees in the city. And then just time. There's been a lot of trees that have come down because of age, the wrong trees being planted in the wrong places. And so we have taken a really good look at, you know, where we are with trees, and we said there's a bunch of things we need to do. Okay, and the first thing that we need to do is come up with a plan. So we are looking to do a few things like a tree inventory, which is we're looking to do in 2021, to survey every tree in the city. Okay, so that is something that's up and coming. But in the meantime, we wanted to come up with a plan to be able to, we know areas in the city that are hurting. You know, West Hill, South End, Pine Hills, they're all areas where there are blocks that have no trees at all. Or there are areas that have trees that we need to remove the trees and we need to replant. For the most part, the program that we just unveiled actually in the Pine Hills, which was the 2025 tree program, is a program where we are going to plant 2,025 trees by the year 2025. Okay, so how are we going to do that? We're taking an approach. Obviously, to do anything, it costs money. We have to, you know, obviously to remove trees, and then the cost to plant the trees, and then the cost to maintain the trees. And the maintenance is not a small thing. And trees need to be watered. Trees need to be loved. You need to make sure that the root structure is not compromised. You need to make sure that people aren't hanging on them. So as a result of that, we created this program to try to find a way to not only educate people on what they should be doing, get people excited about owning a tree and maintaining a tree and being a part of the process, but also to help us fund it. Okay, so we've tried it in three different ways that we are trying to get people to help. The first way is to adopt a tree. residents, and that may be where the Pine Hills neighborhood comes in and the residents of the Pine Hills come in, to adopt a tree in front of your home, make it a part of your family. You adopt it, we'll plant it, and you'll maintain it for the life of the tree. We've launched a website, adoptatreealbany.com, which has all the information on how to adopt a tree. The city still, this is a program actually it's been around for a while. It used to just be called the share cost tree program for many years. But basically, the city underwrites half the cost of the tree. We pay for half. The resident pays for half. Every tree on this list is $150. You adopt a tree these trees are approved under power lines, not under power lines. So they're approved for those. You choose the tree you want. You pay the $150. We will plant the tree. We will give you the tree instructions on how to take care of the tree. We're even going to give you a little adoption certificate to say that tree is yours. So you feel like it's part of your family. It's still a city tree. The city still is going to trim it and all of that. It's not your responsibility. But the idea is that a lot of people think that it's not their tree, not their responsibility. It's not that it needs to be. The city can't love every tree personally every single day. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Again, people hang on trees. They need to be watered in the beginning. They need to be loved. And we just can't do that for every tree. So we ask residents to do that. The second thing we're asking for is sponsorship. Okay. There's a lot of community partners out there. There's a lot of corporate sponsors. There's a lot of non-for-profits that if they want to adopt a tree in the name of their company, we have a program for that too. So you can say that I'd like to adopt 2 trees, and the trees, it's $1,000 a tree basically is what it is. And what does that get you? Well, we're going to find a spot for the tree that really needs in those areas, those distressed areas where trees need to be. You will put the tree there, and you'll get that company will get the credit for the tree. We'll put a little placard at the base of the tree saying that's been sponsored by that person or that group, and we'll maintain it, we'll water it. That's where the bulk of that money comes in. Because somebody's going to say, well, if I pay $150 for it in front of my house, I go, well, it's the maintenance, and then we're not paying for the half. So they're paying for the planting, the maintenance, and we're going to take care of the tree. And then the third way of doing it, okay, is just to donate. We've created a designated fund for trees for people to donate, and we've already gotten a pledge from the Carl Toohey Foundation for a good amount of money to be able to put some money in that fund to help us plant in areas like South End and West Hill and the Pine Hills. So we're going to be looking at areas, and we're going to be planting trees in those areas. So we're looking for one of those 3 things: either adopt, if you're a resident and want to adopt a tree in front of your home, if you're a business, or you're an individual that doesn't want a tree in front of your home, but you want to donate to the fund, or you can sponsor a tree. We'll figure out where the tree goes. We'll maintain it. We'll tell you where it is, but it's, we'll put a little placard. It'll be put on our website to say that you sponsored that tree. But we're trying every way to get people to get excited about this and to be a part of the solution, to be a tree keeper, because we need that. We can't, the city can't do it alone. We need buy-in from the residents. We need buy-in from the community. That's the only way it's going to happen. But the maintenance has to be there more than anything, the care and the love, whether it's a resident doing it or whether it's the city doing it, and we need to be able to do that. So that is the crux of the program. I ask everybody to go onto the website, which is adoptatreealbany.com. All the stuff is there, talks about it. And if you have any questions, there is a form you can fill out there to send an email or make a phone call, whatever you need to do.
Thank you, Frank. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions. I'll start it off.
Go ahead.
You seem there's a difference between, on the one hand, a resident adopting a tree in front of their residence. When you get to sponsorship or just plain donations, I want to make sure I understand. Would that be the city would be taking care of all the initial watering and that type of care, so you don't need to have, say, an involved resident where that tree is placed?
Right, exactly. So, the whole adopt a tree thing is, you want a tree in front of your home. It becomes part of your landscape, your curb appeal. And so that's different. You're going to love it. You're going to take care of it. You're going to make sure, everything is there. that's where that program is. The others are designed for people who just want to see more trees in the city. You can do a sponsorship where your name is going to go as on the tree, on the website and all, and you get, you know, something for the PR of it, or you can just help put money into a fund to see that the city gets repopulated. That's basically what it is. So it depends on the level of your commitment and what you want out of this. You know, some people don't care. They just want to, we've actually had a couple since we announced this. We've had a couple of donations to the tree fund where people are just, you know, good luck. We just want to see more trees planted. Here's some money. We know you'll do the right thing, type of a thing.
So I guess to follow up on that a little bit, I can envision either for our association or subgroup there are certain streets that just are very, very bare of trees.
Yes.
Primarily small landlord-owned properties. So in that case, we or another group say, you know, we'd really like to see Hudson Avenue treed, for example, this block, and we'll fundraise or come up with the money of X dollars per tree, then the city would take care of the planting, which in some case would be removing asphalt, and with water, do all that. That's extremely attractive. I think that's good.
And these funds help us do that. So these funds will help us do that maintenance and that sort of thing. So
great. Carolyn Keefe has her hand up.
Thank you, John. And thank you, Frank. So I live in the Midtown Pine Hills, which is where we are missing a lot of trees. And actually the Midtown Pine Hills Committee, it has just put together a subcommittee to start to figure out the tree issue as well as the blacktop issue, because we have a lot of blacktop in places that should be yards or trees. And that's probably one of the reasons why we've lost so many trees on Hudson and Hamilton and in the neighborhood. I'm not going to ask all of the questions that I have because I'm hoping to have a longer conversation at some point. I do have a couple related to, you said if a resident wants a tree, but what if that resident is not a property owner, and how are you handling rental property and whether or not the property owner of the rental property may be interested in having a tree in front of their property? And how are you, and related to that, how are you deciding where to plant? What is your timeline? What is your decision-making process for where these trees will be placed if they're not purchased by the actual the property owner? Thank you.
Very good questions. Okay, so let's start with the first one about being a homeowner. You don't have to be a homeowner to buy the tree, to sponsor the tree and adopt the tree in front of your home, because the area that we're putting them in is city property. It's a city right of way. It's not private property owned by the property owner.
Okay.
So what we're looking for by you doing it is a commitment by that renter. We've got a lot of people who rent in this city. They're long-time committed renters that will live there for a long time, and they'll maintain that tree and love that tree. So you don't have to. If you live there and you want to actually adopt a tree in front of your property in a city right away, you absolutely can do that, and you can pay the money, and you can do it, and it'll be your tree to love while you're living there. Okay, we hope that you're taking on, we say that it's a kind of a 3-year commitment to get the tree off the ground. You know, we see a lot of, and let's talk about the Pine Hills, let's talk about those neighborhoods, the streets that you mentioned. Okay, part of the reason trees don't live in some of those neighborhoods that traditionally there's a lot of college students that I've noticed through the years, and I've been with the city 23 years now, okay, is that on certain nights you'll see people hanging from brand new trees. Okay, so I'm sure I see a lot of heads nodding right now. So obviously people agree with me. So that is where the love comes in from that resident that lives in that house to make sure that the tree, you can't stop kids from walking by and hanging off of trees, but you know, making sure that they're doing whatever they can to keep that tree healthy in those formative years, and making sure, like, you're not dropping your child on its head when it's a baby. You're not hurting that child or you're hurting that tree when that tree's a baby. You know, making sure that it's healthy, that we're watering it. Water's the most important thing, the soil, the whole bit. So, and we give you the instructions on what to do there. So that answers that question. As far as a plan, you know, the city forester is looking, Jay Levine is looking at this, as did Tom Pfeiffer, his predecessor, quite a bit. There's a lot of areas. We're taking it area by area where trees need to be first removed and then second replanted. But there are areas where it's just barren. There's no trees. I mean, we did the announcement on a street where there was no trees. And we're looking to do the same thing. So It's really taking a look at the need, taking a look at the areas of where we can get the most maybe adoptions out of people versus the sponsorships or where we're going to put it. But the ultimate goal is to try to get as many people involved. Once we get people involved, then we're going to start to assign where they need to go based on some things. So like in the very beginning, the Albany Parking Authority has donated some money, and we're doing a lot around their parking garages. So you're going to see a lot getting done there because they've already donated some money right off the bat. The Housing Authority's done the same thing. So we're going to be doing quite a few that have been identified around their housing developments that they own adjacent to their property. So we've got lists of those, and we're like kind of identifying those. And then we're going to be looking at, we just kind of opened this thing up, and there has been a huge, it took us some time. I think we wanted to announce this in April, right? So that we had the spring season and the fall to do the planting. COVID hit, it wasn't allowed. So we were able to squeak it by and get it done in September. So the planting season's pretty much over for the fall. All right. So one of the things that we're trying to, and I was just looking at the website to see if it says it, and I don't think it's articulated as well as I'd like, so it's going to get changed. But the bottom line is that when you can adopt a tree anytime you want throughout the year. And this may come in the future. I'm hoping that people may say, hey, I want to give a tree as a gift to somebody for Christmas. My daughter just bought a new house, and I want to plant a tree in front of her house. So I'm not saying we're going to get into gift certificates and all that, but maybe we will. Maybe we'll find something. This is new to us, so I don't know. But you can say, I'm going to plant a tree in front of your house as a gift for Christmas, and we'll do it. You can pay for it. You can give her the stuff. You can do everything, but we're not going to plant it until the next planting season. So you can pay for it up front. You can put your order in, but there's only 2 windows to be able to plant. The spring, which is basically the month of May, maybe a little into June, and the fall, which is all of October and maybe a little in November, depending, like maybe the first week of November, depending. So we're pretty much done. We've taken, and you could get something in, you could get your order in, let's say the last week of September or the first week of October, and we may be booked up. So you may have to wait. So it's all going to depend on how good this is. Now, we're going to push as hard as we can because we want to get as many trees in the ground as possible. We have that goal. We want to keep that goal. So if it means putting on a second group, second contractor, doing what we have to do to get it done, we will. But we're going to do everything we can to do that. So I think we're going to see how this grows. But in the first year, that's where we're at. So nothing's going to be planted anymore if you haven't already gotten your plant. But believe it or not, since the announcement, I think we got 23 or 28, something like that. Applications came in after the announcement. I was very encouraged by that. People are excited about it. So, and more may come in, and we may have to hold them until the spring, but we want to keep the buzz going. Go ahead anytime. So,
Thank you.
I saw Leah's hand go up.
Hey.
How are you?
Hey, Frank. Good. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So, Carolyn really covered my question, so I'm not going to go so much into that, but I just want to, kind of reemphasize that we need to figure out a way to get trees in areas that have a lot of rental properties because they're disappearing.
Yes.
But even more than that, I just wanted to say thank you to DGS for the amazing job that you did with other city departments last week after, the horrible storm and all the trees that came down and all the damage that was done. Just thank you so much. From Pine Hills, we had a huge tree down right at the end of my block at Quail and Myrtle, and it was really something, and it was all over the place. So yeah. I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you for saying that. I always say DGS employees are the unsung heroes. We're out there in all the wrong weather, and we're facing a lot of challenges. And I believe the men and women in our department, they meet those challenges on a day-to-day basis. And I couldn't be, as a deputy commissioner of that department, I couldn't be prouder of the workforce. They're really wonderful. And yeah, that was a challenging storm because it hit us hard. And we rose to the challenge. We had a few people that were out on vacation that were actually not available to come in. And we, some supervisors, and we really we hit it hard. And there were some trees on houses. There was obviously the national grid. That was the biggest issue, not having the power. And I know that in that particular week, I put close to 60 hours in. I was on the phone midnight with National Grid with my contact saying, please, please. It was tough. So I'm glad that, but I thank you for that. That means a lot. That means a lot. So.
Well, Frank, thank you very much. I think, and thank you, Leah, for mentioning that. That's a nice note to end on. It's a very exciting program, and we are grateful for everything you do. So thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you. John, if I can have just one more minute just to mention, so I know you asked me to talk about the 2025 tree program and the Adopt a Tree, but I'd also just want to mention, back in May, we announced, and it was a very soft announcement. It went as a press release. It really didn't get covered. And we did send out an email, but I don't know how well the email to the neighborhood groups. I don't know how well it was received, but we did launch a neighborhood portal as a result of a lot of conversations that we had with neighborhood groups in the year 2019. We said, you know what, we've got to find a way to communicate better. Now the city is looking to put a new city website out that hopefully will be just a little bit more user-friendly. But until that happens, we felt that neighborhood groups and need a place to go for quality of life issues. And so what we did was we put together a neighborhood portal, a website called albanyneighborhoods.com. And it's a one-stop shop for all your quality of life stuff. You can download forms from there. It'll take you to other websites. It will take you to other links. There's FAQs. I ask everybody, please look at it. Show people there are FAQs if your question isn't there and you want it. Places for you to ask your question, and if your question's good, one we didn't think of, we'll put it on the portal. You know, we are hoping to eventually maybe add a blog to this, surveys eventually, a lot of things. So we want your feedback, but it's neighborhood based, and you know, little things like Woodlawn Park. I don't know if that's part of the Pine Hills. They're pouring a ADA concrete path there. I immediately put that on there this week. We sent out some information to some people to spread the word, but I don't necessarily know it gets to everybody. So this would be a place that we can keep daily information going on to, that neighbors and neighborhoods can go to say this is where it is. We put it on Facebook, we can do it, but it's a good place for things to go anytime we want you to know about stuff. So everybody could just be going there on a daily basis if they want, and it can be learning new things. And this way, and it could even be just a place to jump to other websites as we see things that need to be pointed out. So I just wanted to mention that since I had the group here, albanyneighborhoods.com, check it out.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Frank.
All right.
So we're ready now to go to the committee officer and other reports. And I note that Luke Rumsey has been able to join us. So we'll go to the Committee on University and Community. Luke.
Sounds good. Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Luke Rumsey. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students here at the University of Albany, and I chair the Committee on University and Community Relations. We did have a meeting in October, and the meeting focused primarily on the new SUNY regulations that were pushed the beginning of October with regards to COVID-19 violations. And so for those of you that don't know, SUNY announced a new set of mandatory minimum sanctions for any SUNY student who violates a COVID-19 policy. And that could include the face mask, it can include social distancing, and it can include, you know, violating the governor's executive orders with regards to gatherings. And so they are extremely strict, and this is now mandatory for all 64 state campuses to follow. Myself as a conduct officer on campus, I'm one of those individuals who are going to be enforcing those policies. Our next meeting will be coming up in November on the 12th, and we're hopefully going to be having a representative from the State Liquor Authority coming in to speak to us a little bit about how they conduct their compliance checks at local businesses. In addition to that, you know, from the University of Albany, just a quick update on our COVID status. We have currently 9 cases counting against our threshold. So again, every 14-day period, we have a new threshold. The governor has asked that if we get to 100 cases, we will have to go on mandatory pause. So we have 9 cases in that new 14-day window, which will reset on October 23rd. If you were to look at a rolling 14-day average, in the last 14 days, we had 15 individuals test positive that live on campus, 9 test positive that live off campus but have on-campus classes, and 37 test positive that live off campus that are fully remote. So in total, that's 61 over the last 14-day time period. Testing wise, we've conducted a little over 11,000 tests to date. So 624 PCR tests, that's up the nose with a swab, and 10,764 saliva sample pool tests. And our percent positive rate is well under 1% at this point. We are well underway right now with our planning for Halloween weekend. As we know, it can always be a challenge. We are planning on surging staff into the community. So it won't just be myself riding with a police officer. We're going to have several of me out there in the community. We're also going to be seeing an increased presence from university police out there as well. The university has finalized their spring schedule, John, and we are going to be in session from February 1st through May 12th. That is a bit of a change this year. And again, this is as a result of COVID. We have shortened our spring semester by a couple weeks. So instead of coming back mid-January, we're going to start in February. And unlike previous semesters, we are not going to have any breaks. So we're going to go straight through. We felt that it would be safer to have the students, once they're here, stay here, as opposed to going to all parts around the country and coming back and bringing back whatever they got into, if it was COVID related or otherwise. We will be having a spring football season as of right now. The CAA recently announced that they are planning to open up a season on March 7th to run 7 weeks. And our off-campus ambassadors have been extremely busy. We've had a couple micro cleanups in the last month. We had a Living Off-Campus one-on-one presentation, which was conducted virtually yesterday. We've got a personal safety seminar coming up with the Albany Police Department, which will be virtual in nature next week. And they've been doing a lot of stuff with our test sites and dropping off pool kits and doing quite a few door-to-doors. And I think that's it for me, John. Any questions, concerns from the group? Okay.
Thanks, Luke. Okay, next up, public safety. We have Sergeant Tanya Alex Hansen as well as Officer Joe Aquaviva. So whoever is going to take the presentation, go ahead.
How we doing, everyone? So good news is the complaints that I've been getting are actually in relation to more nuisance like noise and stuff like that, smaller complaints, most of which seem to be specific and not even college related, but just individuals in the neighborhood who are making too much noise. We did have a couple of shots fired calls right on the cusp of Pine Hills. They seem to be some targeted activity from certain individuals and looking at other certain individuals. So it's not a random act. It's more specific. Obviously, if we can narrow that down and make some arrests, we'll let you guys know that. But those seem to be the only things that have come across my desk. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Next up, zoning and code enforcement. Blue Goldie.
So there's nothing on any of the agendas in Pine Hills right now, nothing on the DZA, the planning, or the HRC. So there's nothing to report.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question or I have a comment. When John and I were driving down that street the other day, what's that park, John? You know how there was that porch that was a big bone of contention with the BZA? It looks to have been redone. There's a porch there. Looks nice. So I just wanted to bring that up. Yeah.
Yay.
I'm sorry, I keep pushing the wrong button trying to unmute myself. I'm not sure exactly where you're referring to, but we've been doing regular walkthroughs with code enforcement, and Luke's come down with us from the university, and then DGS. And so we've been trying to to stay consistent and follow up with things over there. But one of the things that we have noticed, some of the properties that we saw that were cited from our first walkthrough have actually, you know, complied, and you know, we're starting to see them fixing things. We saw, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 different porch repairs or replacements, significant yard cleanups. The trash pickup on trash night is still a kink we've got to work out. But we're definitely seeing some improvement over there, and other people are talking about it just as you have. So it's a start, and hopefully we can stay on it and you know, really clean things up over there. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Sergeant. And thank you for sort of taking over the lead on those neighborhood codes walks. And let us know when they're taking place.
John, can I just clarify for the Sergeant for a second that thank you for that. We love, Pine Hills Neighborhood Association loves that APD has taken the lead on these zoning and these code walks. And I'm just used to reporting on what is on the specific agendas for the Planning Board, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Historic Resources Commission. So that's why I said nothing to report, but you know, we really love that you're doing that. So I just wanted to be sure you knew that. Thanks.
Thanks, Lee. I understand how that happened now, but I'm glad it came up because we are very grateful, of course, for all that APD does. But Sergeant Hansen in particular, we're grateful you've taken over, overseeing, leading the codes walks, if you will. It's always been a multi-office, multidisciplinary approach, but it helps to have a sergeant at the helm, I think. And we'd like to know about it too. Pine Hills members from the Midtown group and others have participated. So Luke or Sergeant Hansen, make sure we know about it, and we'll see if we can get a couple of people to go out and help. It's helpful for us to sort of learn where the line should be drawn for property condition and litter and trash and other conditions, so we know where to see click fix and how to make you know, which are the problems we should be blowing the whistle on quickly. So thank you for that. Anything else, Sergeant? Or was no?
You know, that's it. You know, like Joe said, as far as crime, that, you know, the most significant things were the shots fired that we had, you know, kind of on the border there. But one thing, and again, it's only a couple incidents, but, you know, it is the car larcenies are starting to creep up on us again. And it's not just in Pine Hills, it's kind of citywide. We're starting to see them increase over the last few weeks. So, you know, we're going to be trying to, you'll start to see those messages coming out from Steve Smith and on Nixle and other platforms. But they're crimes of opportunity, unlocked doors, and that kind of thing. So
Great.
just to make you aware.
Okay, let's go to Carolyn Keefe, the Midtown Pine Hills Improvement Group.
Thanks, John. I also want to add my very grateful thanks to the sergeant for getting those codes walks going. I think they're really, really important, and to keep them consistent and really staying on top of the property owners really makes a huge difference. The porch that Virginia was talking about was actually something that was before the BZA, so that's a different thing and not necessarily related to what you're doing. Anyway, the Midtown Pine Hills Committee is meeting on Monday, October 26th at 6:30. It will also be on Zoom, so if you are interested, you can reach out to me at fig, PHIG, pinehills@gmail.com, or just reach out to the Neighborhood Association and they'll get your message to me and I'll get you a link. We have a couple of subcommittees going. As I mentioned, we are trying to sort of look at the tree issue within Midtown Pine Hills ourselves and work with the city on actually developing a plan, because not only do we have this issue with the trees not really the tree loss, but we also have a lot of blacktop in places that should not be paved, and which contributed to the tree loss, but also it contributes to noise and runoff and heat and things like that. So that's one of the things that we're working on. We're also working on a trash and litter subcommittee. Our next meeting for that is next Wednesday, the 21st. At 4:30 p.m. If anyone's interested in doing that, we're going to start expanding our conversation around that. Although we have started one, well, I should say one project was suggested that that Luke and the university have started to work on, which is developing a way for students who are seeking and need service hours, community service hours, to use some of those hours to help keep the neighborhood cleaned up, to do cleanups on a daily or a few days a week kind of basis. So that probably won't start until next spring. It'll probably be folded into next semester's community service classes. And then I have a couple of people who have offered to help gather information about our businesses so that we can start to get the word out, particularly to our student neighbors, but also to other neighbors about how to order food that's a little closer to home, you know, who uses which service and things like that, so we can help support our businesses during this time, especially if we have to start. As it gets colder, they're not going to be able to have as many people actually coming to the restaurants because it'll be too cold to be outside, and the percentage of people who can be inside is smaller. So that's a project that we're still working on, but it's coming along, and hopefully we will get it done soon. And I think that's it, if anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Upper Madison Group, Virginia.
Well, we just met, actually, I think it was yesterday or the day before, with the Upper Madison Group. But before that, we had met with Frank Zeoli, who's not here anymore. Frank, Matt Peter, and Brad Glass from the Planning Department to talk about the streetscape, primarily between West Lawrence and South Main, and where those benches are by the Price Chopper. And the agreement was that they were not set up for the best way in terms of people using them for the new uses, for example, takeout. According to Frank Zeoli, that takeout is here and will be here even after COVID. So how can you make that area more, not only more attractive, but also more usable and have more people gather there so it's not such a sort of desert right there in front of the Price Choppers? So Matt showed us some possibilities in terms of picnic tables. We talked about possibly some plantings. We talked about a combination of benches and tables. And the reason why the Albany Parking Authority is involved is because we formed a partnership with them a couple of years ago because we have parking structures, APA parking structure all along that street. And because of that, we are eligible for all these really nice things. So, so the plan is to have some ideas from Brad Glass, to have Matt look at more ideas about the kind of seating there would be. And we even talked about the possibility of some statues or some artwork. So it would be a real enhancement of that area to really make it as more popular, or possibly even more popular than the juniors block, because there is food on one side with the food court, and there's takeout from Price Chopper, and then there's also the Madison Theater and the Lunchbox, or whatever it is the name of their little restaurant is. Another perk that we can get from APA is more trees. And so we talked about that, and APA is going to sponsor us for 4 trees on the juniors block, including watering. And I think one of the best ideas that Frank came up with, and we've been talking about this for years, is the brickwork around those trees on the juniors block, and how the trees have grown up and have heaped up the sidewalk. And Frank said he did not like the bricks at all. They were not ADA compliant, that they were dangerous, and that hopefully they would eventually be replaced. So we've been kind of working on that, or thinking about it, and thinking there really needs to be some improvement there. And so all in all, the meeting was very good. And we look forward to, continuing to work on the streetscape there, and also in DeWitt Clinton Park. That's it.
Really neat project, great ideas, adding to the improvements that have already taken place with the Upper Madison group. Treasurer's report, Eric Shadow.
Hey, I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so yeah, there was just, I don't have an update tonight. We just have to work on getting the account straightened out. We've had some trouble getting it moved from the previous, and it's all really on Trustco finishing up the paperwork. So we just have to finish that up. So that's my my only update. We can send an update once we get that straightened out next week. And just to comment on the Park Avenue, yeah, that one, the house on the end there of a strip of residences there, the one owner had a trouble with the neighbor. Just recalling that, and I happened to walk by there this morning on my walk. So yeah, it looks good. Standing up to the, asking them to put the porch back was good. I think there was another one on Yates that was a similar issue where they wanted to take the porch off, and looks, the porch that was put back on looks pretty good at this point. So it definitely, you sometimes feel for the owners, but it's seemed to have come up with a way to make them look good. So that's good for the community and everybody. So that's a good thing. But yeah, we'll get a treasurer's report out next week.
Thanks, Eric. Membership? John?
We have 165 members. 3 new ones came in of the people who did not pay.
All righty. We are getting a few people back in. We'll see what happens next year. Well, we have run through all our committee reports. We have a couple of elected officials with us. Why don't we start with the Common Council and our uptownish overlapping member, Joe?
Joe's not here. I think the only elected right now is Bararo.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Joe up there is Joe Aquaviva.
That was Joe.
Yeah, Joe Aquaviva is there, but not, right, but not Joe Igo.
Gotcha. All right. So I don't mean to all, we have Bararo. Yes, you are first, and you may be last among the elected officials tonight.
Great. Sounds good. Since the last time I updated,
You're muted there.
can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
All right. So since the last time I last updated the association, we've passed the Albany County Clean Air Law, which pretty much bans the burning of tires in Albany County, and also bans any creation of new waste burning facilities in Albany County. And we've also passed the local law H, which prohibits the sale of sparkling devices. So anyone, as you all know, we had so much issues with sparkling devices, with the fireworks going on every night and disturbing people. So I'm glad President John was able to come speak in support of the legislation, and we did receive the letter from the association. So that was good that we passed that local law H. And I've also introduced, this week, I introduced the local law I of Albany County 2020 to ban smoking in all common areas in multi-dwelling units. And so that has been referred to the public health and law committees, respectively. That should be all, I think. We are currently in our budget process. I just received my budget book for 2021. Doesn't look like there's any increase in taxes, and it looks good so far, as I can tell, but it's a lot to go through. That should be it for now.
Thanks so much, Burrell. Looking at
Awusu is here now, John. Awusu is here now, John, if no one has questions for Bararo.
Oh, okay. No
Yes,
question.
if you have questions, you can.
But thank you, Burrell, very much for the returning to the undoing of the allowance of sparkling devices. That's a big issue for us, and we hope that that, as well as enforcement, will lead to a much calmer, less noisy neighborhood. I would say over the summer or the holidays, but it was pretty much, from April straight through. It does seem to have, I don't know if I can say stopped, but abated very much at the moment. We're very glad.
Thank you for coming to speak on that.
Oh, sure. Let's go to Awusu, Anani.
Hello, how's everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe and healthy out there. Just to kind of give an update, as everyone know, the Woodlawn project, which has been a top priority since getting elected, finally was completed a couple of weeks ago. We had a ribbon cutting. It was great. It looks amazing. And I hope that many of our neighbors are checked it out. Again, the top priority was safety and making sure that everyone is safe, whether for our kids or our seniors that are taking walks around the neighborhood. I want to thank all the people who advocated for the sidewalk and also for the improvement of Woodlawn, whether it's stop sign. I want to thank, Judy. I want to thank Aaron. I want to thank neighborhood associations and everyone who wrote stop me at Price Shop or even send letter to city. So I'm really excited about that. In City Hall right now, most of the legislation that I've been focusing on is quality of life legislation. I just recently introduced legislation which it passed out of committee with a favorable recommendation. One that once a notification has gone out to city DGS of a violation, that the city Department of DGS post that property within 3 business days. So very too often we see properties that you have trash in front of, you have litter in front of it, you have unhealthy garbage that has been left there for weeks and months. So one of the things that I've done is that with this legislation, instead of waiting weeks for Department of General Service to act to post that house, I have introduced a legislation where the Department of General Service have to post that house within 3 business days. I've also increased the fine for trash and litter in front of someone's property from the max used to be $500. I've introduced it to go to $1,000. Very too often, some of these property owners and absentee landlords, they rather the city of Albany take care of that that infraction rather than hiring somebody to take care of it. So I believe that raising that fine to $1,000 is a step in the right direction. Is it going to solve all the problems? No, but it's a step in the right direction. And we're going to keep on working on those quality of life, litter, trash issues. For right now, the mayor introduced a budget. We're going through it. We just met with the police department and other departments, and I'll keep everyone posted as what's going on. Right now, I would say the top priority for me specifically has been Richfield Park, and I'm glad to see that that was included in the budget. We're going to see $130,000 invested in playground equipment at Richfield Park. We're also going to see $20,000 that's going to be invested into the bathrooms at Richfield Park. We're also going to see new sprinklers, state-of-the-art sprinklers at Richfield Park. We're also going to get like new fence. So I'm glad that this advocacy for Richfield Park improvement is coming into fruition, and we're not just talking about it, making this dream into a reality. And I look forward to the completion of Richfield Park. Also, if you've been following, there's been, since the pandemic, there's been individuals who have been purchasing dogs or even adopting dogs. And there's been a renewal call for a dog park in our neighborhood. So I want to just, right now we're in the early stages. We're looking at various locations that we could potentially have a dog park in our neighborhood. But I'm gonna keep everyone posted. And we have checked out several locations. I know we have one by the Little League. We're also looking at Richfield Park. And we're also looking at Providence and Reichman next to the wetland project. This is in the early stages. So if you have any suggestions or any ideas, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, we it just happened today. We did get an all-way stop sign on Peister and Reichman. Many of the neighbors on Reichman have been complaining for years about the speed that individuals are traveling. And I'm glad to see that the administration and also traffic and safety finally made the decision to put a stop sign on Peister and Reichman.
Okay. Well, it would seem we have reached the end of our agenda. I'm not seeing any other issues. Next month in November, we will have Zach Powell from the City Planning Department, and he'll be there to talk about the bicycle pedestrian master plan, and hopefully they will have a draft master plan to present to us. So that'll be an interesting opportunity to see that. So until then, we thank you all for joining us. This was on Facebook Live. It will be available on YouTube probably by tomorrow.
John, could I just ask Owusu a question, or ask him to check? The LED lights that are supposed to be replacing lights, it was a staged process, but I understand from what I've read that because of safety issues, et cetera, that was going to be accelerated into the neighborhoods. And I was just wondering, when the Pine Hills area, obviously there are lights over on Woodlawn and also Upper Madison and so on that will eventually, I expect, be replaced. So can you check to see what the schedule is?
I'll be more than happy to check. Oh yeah, yes, I'll be more than happy to check with Chris Spencer, who has been the architect with making sure that these LEDs conversions are taking place. I will say in the 10th Ward, we only have a few more that need to be changed, but overall, I know that Chris has been so focused with the uptick in violence that we have witnessed, particularly in the South and West Hill and Arbor Hill neighborhoods. That has been a top priority for the police department and also, the planning department and the mayor's office. But I will definitely follow up. Is there a specific street that you would like to see? Please message me. Oh, yeah.
No. I was just wondering when we would be seeing them in our general area.
We have them in Midtown Pine Hills and have for almost a year now. So.
Yeah, that's where would you? Are you talking about like Reichman, or is there specifically? Is there a specific street?
No. I was just thinking of Upper Madison, and then also over on Woodlawn. The old lights. It's just a question.
Sounds good. I would follow up with Chris Spencer and get back to you.
Thanks a lot.
Could I just ask a question? Is like, I see that there are numbers of participants here, but I don't see everybody on the screen. So I know that Eric was here because I heard him. I assume Lori's here. Is there anyone else who's here that I don't see?
We can't tell who you don't see is the problem.
Okay, never mind. John says he's got everybody. So, okay, thank you very much. I just want to do it for the minutes. Okay.
John, can I just add really quick?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It just came to my mind. Just, for those who have the means, please support our local businesses in the 10th Ward and the Pine Hills neighborhood as a whole. Many of them are struggling. So again, if you could, support them with financially, that would be greatly appreciated. And just to kind of give an update, there is some work with the old Hudson River Cafe. There's a new gentleman who just reached out that's looking to open coffee and also wine and beer at the old Hudson River Cafe location, Hudson and Quell. There's been a lot of work, and I'm going to put all that information in my newsletter, but just want to give you a heads up. While COVID has put out a lot of business in the city, in our neighborhood, we are starting to see more businesses opening up. We have cafe and coffee that's going to be opening up on Hudson and Quell. They're looking to open the first week of November. We also have a new flower shop that's open at 811 Madison, Blooms by Marie. That's another one. And there's a new Mexican restaurant that's also open on Madison Avenue. So the 10th Ward, we're moving forward, and I'll keep everyone posted in my newsletter about ribbon cuttings and other events that will be taking place.
John, I have a question for Owusu as well. It just occurred to me, I'm sorry. I heard some talk about a possible convenience store in the new building that's gone up on Ontario. And we already have 4 convenience stores on Ontario and at least one other one nearby. They were going to put a laundromat in there and a cafe, but the laundromat has fallen through. And there's some talk about putting in what I thought I heard was called like a Stewart's, but not Stewart's, like nicer. But we don't need more convenience stores on Ontario or in that part of the neighborhood at all. So do you know anything about that?
Is that for the Palladium project?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard anything, and I actually spoke to Ryan Janko 2 days ago about their project on South. They just purchased a building on South Lake and Weston Avenue, the Eloise building. But I haven't heard anything about having a convenience store. But I'll follow up with him. I'll text him after this and just try to get more details about it, and also communicate your sentiment towards that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're just already oversaturated with convenience stores, and we have some that have been there for decades, and we don't want to have them undermined. So, thank you.
I agree.
John has a question. Take your thing off.
Owusu, do you know what's going on with the Fix Cafe? Or does anybody know what's going on? That's been dark for a long time. Thank you.
Yeah, I do know what's going on with the Fix Cafe. It's unfortunate, but it looks like they will be closing. And it was a lot that was going on, particularly with the landlord and the business owner. But I'm confident, speaking to the landlord, that they're going to have another replacement shortly. But the Fix Cafe will be closing, and they're actually in the process of cleaning up the space right now. But I've spoken to the landlord, and he has assured that there will be another cafe or restaurant at that location. It's really unfortunate, but it was mostly the business and the business owner and the landlord dispute that just went long, and nobody wanted to give in. But it's really unfortunate. It could have been avoided, in my opinion.
Okay. Thanks again, Owusu. Well, I think at this point, and remember, I can't see everyone's face in the gallery view here. That's why I can't always see you. If I put it on gallery, then the whole world sees the gallery, whereas mainly they just want to be hearing and looking at the speaker. So, but I'm not seeing or hearing anything else. So I think we'll adjourn, and we'll see you next month. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
John, we got to end on a positive note, John. Thanks for that question.
There we go. You have the last word, Owusu. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Leah, how you doing? I miss you guys. I miss everybody.